Beneath a sky of fading fire, a single dandelion rises, a soft-spoken dream on a stem of quiet hope. The world blurs around it, but it stands untouched, a whisper of wonder in the hush before night. Hello everybody and welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be talking about the first photo that you just saw. Can you believe that was taken on this lens? This cheap little dinky Cine lens. This is an 85mm t1.5. It's a lot more open than a T or even just f1.8, but this thing can shoot surprisingly well just for its build. And if you're wondering how cheap it is, it's 130 cheap. Do what you will with that information, but it is a Rokinon, or Rokinon, depending on the kind of person you are. But enough about the cameras. I mean, I'm still going to talk about them, but let's move on to the photo real quick. Maybe. So this is a declicked aperture lens. It's a cinema lens from Rokinon or Rokinon. I don't really care about that, but this thing can shoot surprisingly well. I mean, you clearly saw the photo, didn't you? Look how good it is. I know, right? Anyway, for $130, you can get professional build quality. It's just not built sturdy, but I mean, it's okay for the price, I guess. I'm not glazing it, but I mean, it's pretty good. It gives professional results as well as like professional build in some parts, because, you know, I don't know if it's just my copy, but it's a bit loose in the front element. A couple downsides to a cinema lens. Well, one, it doesn't have any image stabilization, and second of all, it's only manual focus. But it does also have some plus sides. You can swiftly manually focus. You know, it's buttery smooth. It's so smooth, in fact. But when it comes to that smooth focus throw, comes a long focus throw. Look how long I have to twist. On a regular lens, you gotta twist like that much for it to focus. That's the aperture, don't worry. That's completely normal. But another thing about a lens like this is its aperture. I mean, look at that thing. You see that? I mean, I don't know if you can see that, but it's a fully detached, or however you say it, aperture, meaning that it's not in the camera, it's on the lens. You gotta move it on the lens. But I have found some caveats to the loose ring. I accidentally move it every time I take a photo. I prefer if it was like clicked to like boop, 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 instead of it just being so loose. But after a while, you do get used to it. So I've been shooting this thing for about a year, maybe 2 years. And here, let me just show a couple photos of my beautiful work with this lens. 1, 2, and the final shot. Lovely, right? Okay, so if I'm being completely honest, this lens right here, it's a cinema lens. That means that it's created for video work, cinematography. But in my expertise for, photography, this thing is also a beast in photography as well, apart from videography. Let me just replay those photos that I just showed you. See? Pretty good, right? This thing is like perfect for isolation in portraits, even, you know, stills photography, like that one that I'm supposed to be talking about, but I'm talking about the damn lens. Yeah, it's perfect for isolation. When you're set to 1.5, all the way at 1:1, you can create perfect isolation. Anyway, enough about the lens. let's talk about the photo. Okay, so let's talk about why exactly I created that photo. Well, there are a couple of reasons why I did that. One is because I have had a challenge for me where on Instagram there are these columns with 3 photos. Each row has 3 photos. So my challenge was that I create 3 photos for one story. And then I go to a different row and I create a different story. And for this story, I decided to go with fine art of a dandelion. That's what I did. I have created a fairy one. That's this one. I've also created ghost of a dandelion, which is 2. And then this one, the one that I'm constantly showing you maybe, which is the isolated dandelion. Have I done well at creating that photo? I mean, I think so. So does my girlfriend. She's the one that wanted me to talk about it. Okay, so I shot this in my backyard with, of course, the trusty old dinky cinema lens. Now, about the backyard, I shot it, of course, on the floor, shooting upwards towards a dandelion. I know, dandy, right? But were there any complications? Were there any setbacks to shooting it? I mean, personally, with my style? Not really. No. Well, me, mostly, I shoot at, like, anything from 1,000 frames per second or lower. So 1,000 or lower, that's what I shoot at. And I constantly have my aperture wide open, especially for a shot like that. But any drawbacks? I mean, no, there wasn't really a problem for like wind or anything. You know, when a dandelion moves in the wind, I didn't really have any problems with that. Not really. But was it difficult to find a subject in all of the grass? I mean, sort of. It's kind of difficult to choose which dandelion I have to choose in order to create the photo. But depending on the lighting situation, I am able to come up with a very good subject for the matter. And this thing, heck, it can isolate it can isolate really well. You know what I mean? Okay, so let's talk about the photo real quick. Let's talk about the editing. I have the little spec sheet right here, and let's start with exposure. So it does seem to be a little overexposed, so we're gonna dumb that down to maybe, I don't know, -60. That seems about right. It does seem a bit overexposed, so just underexpose it. Now let's go down to contrast. This needs to be a very contrasty scene. Bump it up to 95. All right, now let's just move down to highlights. This one's a fun one. It seems to be very blown out, so -100. Bye-bye highlights. Okay, now for this scene, this photo, it doesn't seem to be like too dramatic with the whole shadows. So we're just gonna bump it up just a little bit to like maybe bring out some details in the shadows. Maybe around somewhere 4 or 5. It doesn't need to be a whole lot. Now for the whites, let's move down to the whites. These ones, just because I removed all the highlights, we need to like bump up the whites. So maybe like somewhere around 60 or 70 would do, just to bring out the details from the lost highlights that we just got rid of. Now let's go down to give it even more contrast. We're gonna go to blacks. Now, I know we added a bunch of contrast earlier, but that doesn't mean that we couldn't just make it even darker. So we're gonna go somewhere maybe 40, 50. I know, very dramatic, but don't worry. Now, let's just go to curves real quick. So we're gonna go to curves, and we're gonna kind of give it like a bump in the middle, but kind of like drag down the highlights and the shadows, and just bump up the midtones. This photo seems to be a lot of midtones, so that seems to work out perfectly for it. Okay, now just pause a moment. Let's go to effects real quick. Now, texture. I do want it to be kind of like crunchy, but not like too like crispy. You know what I mean? It's okay. So let's bring the texture somewhere around 20, 70, maybe somewhere in between, just to give it that extra little grit. I don't want it to be like extra smooth. Never mind, I do. So let's go to clarity. That's gonna be somewhere in the 20s or 30s. I don't want it to be like too like a brick wall. You know how a brick wall looks? I don't want it to be like a brick wall. So we're gonna go into the negatives. Somewhere 10s, 20s, maybe in between. Because if I put it the other way, that's gonna give it that extra grit. That's gonna make everything stand out, but that's not what I wanted for this photo. I wanted it to feel ethereal, something dreamy. You know what I mean? Now, let's go down a bit. Does it seem to be a very hazy photo? The spec sheet doesn't see that. But we're just gonna give it a little bit just in case. So maybe somewhere between 5 or 10. Now let's move on to sharpening real quick. It does seem to be a little dull, but we can change that real quick. So sharpening, I put it to somewhere around 20s or 30s. I heard anything above like 30 is a bit too much. It can cause a lot of grain. So try to keep it below that, but try not to overdo it. But now for the special settings for the sharpening, I had the radius up to 1.60. I have no idea what any of these do, but trust me, with my experience, it turns out great. So radius kind of like, it affects certain parts of the image without like doing every single little bit. Detail, I had it to 56. That's just me. And masking, I had it to somewhere between 20s or maybe even 30, because masking is kind of what, you know, brings out the details and the like sharp edges, you know. Now, okay, enough about the sharpening. Let's go down to the colors. Now, we're not going to touch any of the vibrancies, textures, saturations, tints. We're not going to touch those. We're going to move on to color grading. So click that little wheel and let's go to midtones. That's the middle one. Don't touch the shadows for this one. It doesn't work. But we're going to work on midtones. This photo seems to be a lot of midtones. We're going to mess with the midtones and highlights. Don't worry about the global. So for the midtones, I want it to be a little pink. So we're going to put like maybe 316, maybe. But now, a rule that I love to follow for the editing process for the color grading, I don't like it to be like oversaturated with the colors. So I like to add somewhere between 20 below. Anything above 20 I don't really do because it's too oversaturated for me. So I do somewhere around like 15s, 18s, that's what I do. So that's the midtones. It's a pink, hueish color somewhere down here. Maybe this side. Yeah, this side. It'll be somewhere like right here. Circle, it'll be right here. So not too punchy, not too like ecstatic. Let's go down to highlights. Or left, right, whichever way it is. Highlights. Let's talk about the highlights. Those are going to be orange. So, and like I said, this one's going to be less saturated than the pinks. So, maybe 22 for the hue, and maybe somewhere between like 10 and 15 for the saturation. Not to overpower the image, but just to give it that extra oomph, that extra life, you know? Little spec sheet is done. Alright, so there you have it. That is my little editorial kind of explanation to why I created that dreamy, creamy photo of a dandelion. If you like the way I edit and like the way I take photos, I would recommend subscribing because I'm going to make so many more of these. Trust me, it's going to be good. Bye!